Welcome to the Mikhaila Peterson podcast. This episode is featuring Tammy Peterson, my mom. Mom and I went into detail about her background, how mom and my dad, Jordan Peterson, met, their life together for the last 30 years, dad's fame and touring, her near-deadly cancer, and how she's doing now. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to subscribe. This was her introductory episode. She'll be back to talk more about her future endeavors and how she's managed to heal and what she's learned. But I thought getting to know her would be nice for you guys. This episode is brought to you by Hover, a domain name vendor. Something that makes Hover special is it has a ton of options for different endings on domains. It has over 300 domain name extensions to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there's a domain name waiting for it. You can end your website in .blog or .diet or whatever instead of a .com if you so choose. I use Hover for that reason. Adding a .something to your website can be a better idea than a full-on new .com. Or, as my dream a few episodes ago was, you can buy a .news website. Hell, you don't even have to have a legit news company or blog or diet for that matter. Just buy the .diet domain and people will take you seriously. I'm kidding. Don't lie. You'll find excellent technical support available to answer any questions that you may have. Their support team also doesn't upsell you. Free WHOIS privacy protection, a clean user experience, and monthly sales on popular top-level domains. Check them out at hover.com/MP and get 10% discount with that referral link below and on all new purchases. Make a name for yourself with Hover. That's hover.com/MP, also linked below. Also a reminder to eat salt. Eat Redmond salt, they're the best. They're not refined, so it has trace minerals. Honestly, my salt taste should be taken seriously. It's one of my main foods. Realsalt.com, code MP for 15% off. And the link is also below. Aren't they cute? They have little containers too. Remember to hit subscribe if you like this. And I release episodes Sunday and Wednesday. I also have a clips channel at Mikhaila Peterson Clips, also linked below. Enjoy this episode. Peterson, welcome to my podcast.
Hi, Mikhaila. Good to be here.
I'm so excited for this one. I wanted you to come on before, but now is the time, apparently.
Now is the time. That's right. Exactly.
I usually start off by asking people about who they are and to give a brief background about yourself, which might be a bit of a complicated question for you, but I'm going to do exactly the same thing anyway. So could you give my audience a brief background about who you are and what it is that you do?
I grew up in a very rural place in Western Canada. I really like the outdoors, so I spent most of my time outdoors. And when I wasn't outdoors, I was inside drawing and coloring and sewing and playing the piano and playing with my bird because I had a budgie bird and I loved my budgie bird. My budgie bird could, if I played jacks, there was a game where you had these little metal, they're like little stars kind of, and a ball, and you'd throw the jacks and bounce the ball, throw the jacks, and you'd have to grab the jacks before the ball bounced so you could catch it. And my bird was after those jacks like mad, and he would squawk at them and then grab them in his beak and throw them around. He was a lot of fun. So we played, when I would rest, he'd rest. He would sleep on my shoulder while I was sleeping. We were best friends. And Jordan's cat, one day, I was looking at the bird, and the bird was sitting on the top railing of the front curtains of the front plate glass window. And I called him, and he didn't look at me. And I thought, what's the bird looking at? And I opened the drapes, and there's Jordan's tuxedo cat on the outside, a monster tuxedo cat, great, stretched up as far as he could go. He was going to eat my bird, So
yeah. How long, when did you meet Dad?
I was 8 years old. He moved on to the street when he was 7, I guess, because he's a year younger than me. He lived right across the street in an orange house. His dad was a teacher at the elementary school, and George was this very skinny little kid. He was a skinny little, sandy-haired, he had straight sandy hair.
He had straight hair when he was little?
He had straight hair. It didn't curl till he was in puberty. Same with my son, right? Same with Julian.
Julian has curly hair?
Julian's hair, well, it's a bit curly, but he never had any curl until he went through puberty. Same thing. Yeah. Yeah, I met George when he was 7, 8, when I was 8. And we did things that kids do. We played games on the street. We played baseball in the empty lots that were behind our house. We lived right on the edge of town. And he was in the same grade as me, so we hung out with some of the kids at school too. And I was very good friends with him, until grade 7, when I matured and he didn't, because boys don't mature as fast as girls.
He was also younger, right?
And he was a year younger. So I left him to his group of friends, and I went on with my group of friends. And we didn't really hang out again until late in high school. And I was actually going out with another fellow, but I wanted Jordan to be my grad escort because he was my best friend. And so my boyfriend had to go away around graduation, so I asked Jordan to be my escort, and he said yes. So that was our first date, and that was pretty cool. He didn't spend any time with me, though. He spent time with his friends.
At graduation?
At graduation, yeah. Yeah, he was still, well, he was young. He was a young guy.
He was probably nervous.
He was probably nervous too, yeah.
He was probably nervous. Okay, so what happened in university? Where'd you go?
First of all, I went to Edmonton, and that was, a good 6 hours away from home. So it was away from home.
Yeah, where is Fairview? Fairview is where you guys met. How far up in Alberta?
It's in northern Alberta, so it's, 6-hour drive north of Edmonton, near an hour from the BC border. So it's nearly into British Columbia. It's on the prairie, so we could see 40 miles from the hill in our town. Our town was called Fairview, and if you drove up on the hill west of town and looked, you could see lights from communities at night that were 45 or 50 miles away. You would just see a string of lights, like a string of pearls. It was a beautiful place, and you could see so far that the stars would come down, and then you would see the lights of the towns. So you could see the sky and the ground meet in this little cascade of light. It was a beautiful place.
That's nothing like Toronto.
No, but when we moved to Boston, when George was at Harvard and when Julian was born in Boston, you were 2 when we moved there. We went to the ocean every weekend. And that kind of reminded me of the prairie because I could see so far. And so that really, in a way, although it was the ocean, it reminded me of home. And there's wind at the ocean, and there's lots of wind in the prairies. So in some ways, the ocean and the prairies have a lot in common, at least the immense sky that you can get on the prairies is similar to when you go to the beach.
Yeah, I remember the ocean in Boston.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
It was wonderful. Yeah, it was
George used to build out of sand. He would drag his foot around and make a house with rooms, and you and Julian would play house.
Playing those games. Yeah. I can remember that. I would have been like 4 or 5. That was a really good game. Drag your foot and draw a house, and then you can play in like the bedroom or the kitchen of this sand house. That was a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you where did you go to university?
I went to University of Alberta for a year, but I didn't want to live in Edmonton. Let's see. When I went to Edmonton. I just took one course. I took a psychology course, and I worked full time because I didn't quite know what I wanted to study. I was very creative, and it was difficult for me to decide on one career.
You're open.
I was really open. And so it was very difficult to hone in on exactly what I wanted to do because everything looked interesting. But driving a bus looked interesting, as well as, being a painter. So all these things looked interesting. So I took one course in Edmonton. I worked full time. And then I decided, I met someone who was going to McGill, and we drove out to Montreal. And I went to McGill for a year, and I studied art. So I studied, a general arts with French and philosophy and English. And I really had a good time there. It was really fun to be in Montreal, although that was about 1980 and the separatist movement was very hot then. And when we arrived in town, we'd driven across the country. I got food poisoning on the way and nearly died.
That's a fun trip.
Well, when you're living out of a picnic box, sometimes, well, we didn't have a lot of ice or anything to keep things cold. So
you remember those things? I got salmonella.
Yeah, you remember those things.
I got salmonella 2 years ago in January. And I had Scarlett, and she was still in her crib, like young enough that when she wakes up in the morning, I have to go in there and pick her up. And I was so sick, I couldn't move.
You were so
and I had to
sick.
get you to come over.
Oh, I remember
to get Scarlett up because I had like a fever and I couldn't.
You were
I thought
really
it was
sick.
Yeah, it was like 3 days of I thought I was going to die, and then the fourth or fifth day I could eat again. And was like, well, that was nasty. But that sounds like what you got. I wonder if it was salmonella.
Except for I was sitting in the bush.
That's so much worse.
Sitting in the bush. Anyway, it wasn't.
I think
wasn't that big a deal.
Although to come back to that, I think I had my ankle replaced then, so I think I was still hopping around.
Oh, you might have been.
I think I was still hopping around, so I wasn't in the bush, but I did have a surgery ankle.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think
and
you
a
win.
toddler.
I think you win.
I don't know, man. The bush doesn't sound good either. Anyway, after the food poisoning,
we got to Montreal and I recognized Sherbrooke Street and I said, let's get off here. So we go down Sherbrooke Street and I'm like this little town girl, right? I'm a rural girl. I lived in Edmonton for a year, but we down Sherbrooke Street and I see this guy walking down the street and he's got on leather shorts and a leather vest and that's about all. And boots on. And I was just my eyes were just, I was just glued to this guy. I couldn't believe what I saw. And I thought, wow, I've finally moved somewhere where something's happening. And then we stopped at a light. The light was red and the car in front of us turned right into the parked car beside him. And I was just like, what kind of place is this? You could go to a bar and you could carry your drinks around. Yeah. You could stand up in a bar. In Alberta, you can't stand up in a bar because if you stand up in a bar with a drink, you're going to fight. So you get kicked out.
Really?
Yes. So when I came to Ontario, of course, I was only 5'2", so it didn't do me any good to stand up. But you could stand up and walk around and talk. And
in Montreal,
whatever you wanted. Till 3 a.m.
People socialize like crazy in those bars.
Yes.
They wander around
on the streets.
And on the streets, yeah.
Yeah, well, in Alberta, no, that was like no go.
You're going to fight.
No go. That's right. So it was so then I got to Montreal and I just loved it. And I loved McGill too. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful year. It was strange to be in a place where I couldn't get a job because my French wasn't good enough. And if you spoke English, it was tense. The atmosphere was tense. So when I finished that year, I moved to Ottawa and I finished my degree in Ottawa. And I went to University of Ottawa. It was a bilingual university. So I took half my courses in French. And I got a science degree, kinesiology degree. And I studied with a massage therapist for a while because I wanted to do massage afterwards. And I didn't go to massage school, but I took weekend courses and read a lot and started offering massage therapy to people. And at that time, there weren't that many massage therapists around because it was about 1987. And I got people
super new.
I got people coming out of hospitals who were dying, coming to me for massage, for some relief. It was really quite a time to be offering those services. I had one woman, she did pass away. She had lupus and passed away.
Oh.
I had another woman, she was in a cancer treatment. She came to see me. She was okay, but hurting. And I had and I taught yoga. I taught yoga out of my house too. When I first went to university, I'd studied yoga since I was 13 years old. My aunt introduced me to yoga one summer when we were tearing down the pig barn and doing yoga lessons in the morning. It was quite a summer. I took the yoga and went home and I just did yoga every day.
That is so cool.
I thought, I don't know, it seemed like something to do. And I thought I might need this someday.
Yeah, well,
right?
That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So I always had that in my mind that I would need to know how to take care of myself when I was older, that life would get, I didn't know life would get complicated, but I didn't know that, but I sensed that there would be a time where life would be too much for me and I would have to have skills to cope. Right. And
yeah, well, that certainly happened.
Thank goodness I did those things, because I think those things they took me through high school successfully. And otherwise, I don't know how successful I would have been. I'd come home at night after drinking and do a yoga pose or two and realize I'd drank too much. It would bring me back to myself all the time about just where I was. So it's like, when you balance, when you weigh something, you get it to stop at 0 first and then you weigh it. That's what I was like when I'd do my yoga. It would bring me back to myself and I could reflect, okay, I'm doing okay today, or I'm really not balanced today, or I could, and then I did that all through high school so that I didn't ever really go too far one way or another. It kind of centered me. And I'm really grateful for that, because high school can be a disaster for some people.
High school's really hard.
High school's really hard. I mean, high schools are, even the teachers seem to be confused. I mean, it's not just the kids are confused. And I don't know, I grew up in a very rural place in a public school, but I don't think it's all that different anywhere you go. That kids are trying to find their way and there isn't a lot of guidance that they can listen to, unless this was old sage. The yoga, this is centuries old. It was something that had some staying power, and it wasn't the church. And the church, I went to the church, but I didn't get a lot from the minister that was there, and there wasn't, and they're just, although my grandmothers were religious, my mom didn't practice. So we went to church as little kids, and then as teenagers, not so much, and then left the church. And when I went to Montreal, I went to church for a year there, to a United Church. And at Easter, I went to a Catholic church, and it was all in French. All they said was, forgive me, Monseigneur, through the whole thing. They were all these Frenchmen were wearing pastel suits and walk. It was Easter, they all looked like Easter eggs walking around the church. It was quite an experience, but I went all by myself, right? So, because George wasn't a church goer.
Okay. So let's go. So you were in Ottawa, you finished your degree, you're doing massage therapy. You're now fairly bilingual?
Now I'm fairly bilingual, and Jordan gives me a call. He's in Montreal.
When was the last time you talked to him?
I used to see him at Christmas. I'd come home at Christmas every year, and then I didn't for a couple of years. And then he said he was going to move to Ottawa, and I thought, oh, that'd be nice. And then he didn't. He got a job in Edmonton, so he didn't come. So then I kind of thought, well, I'm just going to pick up my life and go forward.
Yeah.
So I went out with a fellow and lived with him for a couple of years. And then I was finishing my degree, and I got a phone call from George that he was in Montreal, that he was doing his PhD and he was going to McGill. And so I went there for Thanksgiving in 1986. And he looked like he was doing all right.
And he was a lot taller.
Well, he was a lot taller a year after high school. I met him in Fairview. He got out of his car, and he got out of his car for like a second or two longer than usual because he was a foot taller. And he still wasn't marryable at that point, though. He was pretty much a wild man at that point. But once I got to McGill, he looked like he wasn't quite as much of a wild man, and that he was getting a life, and that he had a plan. And I thought that there was a possibility that maybe we could make a go of it, because he had already asked me to marry him a couple of times by then.
When? At Christmas?
At New Year's, I think at New Year's I said yes. That was the last time. But
What? I don't remember hearing about this. I thought he wrote it to you in a letter.
he did. He wrote me a letter and asked me to marry him there. And I thought, is this guy for real?
Yeah, kind of. I'm like, that's not very romantic. Where's the knee and the ring?
Yeah, it's like, well, we did live 3,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
And that, back then to call home was, it wasn't, you didn't have a cell phone. You didn't have a cell phone plan or anything. It's cost
kind of
money
romantic.
for long distance. And I didn't have any extra money. Neither did he.
Yeah. And it is kind of romantic.
Yeah, he wrote me a letter. I think that used to be the way it was
Really?
people would write letters. I imagine, yeah.
Oh.
A lot of letter writing, love letters. Remember? You've heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wrote me, I think he was probably going to Europe and wanted to know if I wanted to go with him and also get married. But I thought maybe he was joking because it was written in kind of a joking way.
He's probably nervous.
Yeah,
he could pass it off as a joke if you said no, just in case.
Right. That's right. So I didn't quite know how to take it. So I just kind of left that there. And one time he asked me and I said, maybe. I wasn't ready yet. I didn't want to say no, but I wasn't ready to say yes. I still had to see which way his life went. Well, when we got married, I was 27.
So did he ask you the first time when you were like 25 or something?
Oh, maybe 23.
Oh, okay. That's pretty young.
That's pretty young. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know it started like that early. Like the asking.
Well, the asking? Yeah, the asking started kind of early.
You just tortured him for like 4 years?
Yeah. When he started it looked like he was going to start to have some girlfriends. I married him.
As soon as you saw other women moving in, that's funny.
Yeah. He was just starting to feel like confident and everything, and I married him.
Okay. So you moved to Montreal then?
So I moved to Montreal. And I worked as a massage therapist. I worked as an artist model for quite a while. I was always very interested in art. And so I worked as an artist model. And then one of the guys that I modeled for invited me to take his courses. So then I took 2 or 3 art courses and I applied to art school and I got into Concordia. So I was going to go to art school, but I got pregnant. And I thought, let's see, art school, pregnant. I don't think those two things. It just didn't seem like the right time to go to art school. And I wasn't sure how toxic all the chemicals and stuff would be that I would be using. Mm. So I decided it was better if I didn't. So I studied with James Simon
Thank
instead.
you for that.
You're welcome.
I don't need any more toxins.
No, you don't. No, you don't. So I studied with James Simon. He taught me to paint portraits and still lifes. And then Jordan had his postdoc and he got a job at Harvard and we moved to Boston.
So that was when I was 2 and then
Julian
was
That was when
born.
You were 2 and I was pregnant when we moved to Boston. So Julian was born in Boston.
Can you tell the story? This is such a good one. Can you tell the story of, was it you trying to get medical care or something in Boston?
I was 5 months pregnant when we moved. And when you were born, you were Rh positive and I'm Rh negative. So you get a shot. You get a shot so that you don't abort your baby.
You produce antibodies to it or something.
Yeah, because you'll produce antibodies.
Is that a real thing?
It's a real thing.
Is it?
Yes.
Huh, okay.
So you'll have to pay attention to that. I don't know. Maybe
I didn't get tested I don't remember getting tested for that last time.
Well, she was probably positive and so were you. So there was no problem.
Yeah, maybe I just haven't come across that.
But I'm negative. So that's a difference.
Oh,
so when we got to Boston, you have to have this Rh test at 6 months. And so we were moving right before I needed that test to find out. And then I would have to have a shot so I wouldn't make antibodies against my baby, right? And so when we got to Boston, I called and America they didn't have doctors. They had healthcare centers that you would go to. It wasn't, you don't go to a doctor, you go to a healthcare center. So I call the healthcare center at Harvard and I say that, my husband's a new professor, that we just moved there and that I'm 5 months pregnant and I need to see a physician. And they said, it's a 6 month waiting time to see a physician there. And I thought, 6 months.
And you said you were pregnant?
Yeah, I said I was pregnant and I'm like, that didn't work. I wonder what I could do to get in to see a doctor. And Bill Clinton was the president at that time. And that must have had something to do with my decision, because I phoned back and I said, "Hi, I'm Tammy Peterson. I just arrived here from Louisiana and I need an appointment. I'm pregnant." And they said, "Well, come right in." I'm like, "You fuckers." Come right in. Come right in. Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I went.
That is such a good story,
Isn't
though.
that a
Would have
good
been-
story?
yeah.
Isn't that, no, there's a mother who's desperate, right?
That was a good idea.
It
I'll
worked.
just try to sound more American. Maybe I'm sounding a little too Canadian here.
Yeah.
Still, it's not like Bostonians have that accent.
No, I know. But I think Bill Clinton, because he was president and he had that accent, that it was in vogue at that time or something. Like everybody thought that was anyway, I got in to see a doctor right away. So that was good.
Well, that's good. So what was living in Boston like? Just keep going. What happened after that?
Boston was good. The economy was doing very well under the Democrats at that time. And, United States economy was just booming like mad. So it was a great place to live. And we lived in an apartment right outside of campus for the first year when Julian was just a baby. And you were still really little. So we didn't really need community. But then you guys were going to get older and you were going to need friends and a place to play and all of that. And we decided to buy a house. So we bought a house in Arlington that's just north of Cambridge on a little quiet street with a 5-acre park. And I introduced myself around the neighborhood. And there were a couple of other women who had little kids. And so we would hang out once or twice a week, I think we would hang out. And one of them had another baby. And I used to miss my family quite a bit. I lived in Boston. My family was in Alberta or in BC. And so I thought, I don't know. I just thought I can't just be missing my family all the time. So when my cousin had a baby and I couldn't go home and be with her while she had her baby, but our neighbor, Jill and Kevin, had a baby. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just go over to Jill and give her whatever I would have given my cousin. So I gave her dinner and I can't remember. I may have given her a little baby gift or something. And she responded by letting me take care of her children when her littlest was a little bit older and she wanted to go back to work. She gave her kids to me. And they were the same age as you and Julian. So you guys it was like you had cousins because they were there every day.
Yeah, that was awesome. We were really close friends.
Really close friends. And you just played every day. And I didn't work, but I drew some portraits of some of the professors at Harvard. So I wasn't completely just at home. And that was good for me because I always felt like I needed to do something other than be a mom.
So you had something else to do when you were home. Yeah, being a stay-at-home mom, that is really hard. It depends on who you are, because some people have less of a hard time, right? Some people have much less of a hard time and some people have an impossible time. I had a really hard time I decided not to because I had a really hard time. It's like, I'm just going to wilt. Need some stimulation, bouncing off of walls here. Yeah. But it was nice for me when I was little. I remember hanging out with kids all the time. And I know when I was 5, we moved to Toronto. Well, I turned 6 in Toronto. So that area when we had those close friends that we saw all the time didn't transfer over as well because they were our neighbors. It was really useful.
Yeah, that's right.
That was really good.
And the little school that you went to was just up the street as well.
Yeah.
The primary school. So it was this really cool little neighborhood. It was a 50s neighborhood.
It was. It feels like such a
they had
long time ago.
5 and dime store on the Mass Ave just down the street. It was a real 50. It hadn't changed since the 50s. So it was.
I remember going to diners and eating ice cream that had cow print on the wall.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That is a cool area. I kind of just thought that's what like things were like at those times, but it was styled
it was Arlington.
In an old way.
Mm-hmm. It hadn't changed. But the neighborhood we moved into had some, retired people, and then it had people with little kids moving in. And Jordan and I, we took about 6 months to buy a house. We would drive around to different neighborhoods during the day, and we'd open the door of the car and listen. And if all you heard were dogs barking, we'd shut the door and leave, because we didn't want to live in a community where everybody left and worked and there was nobody there during the day. Because I was coming from Canada. I had no green card. I was going to be at home. And so he was really helpful, George. He was very careful with the fact that I was going to be at home to find a community for me and for you guys. And we did.
And then when guys were very careful too when we moved to Toronto.
Oh yeah. When we moved to Toronto, because we stayed in faculty housing for a couple of years, and then we had to find a house. And we went onto a street one day that was having a street party, and we thought this would be a good street to live in. And then friends of ours who had been living with us in the faculty housing had looked at that house and thought it was way too old and decrepit for them to buy, but they knew that Jordan and I
were crazy enough to
would
buy
fix
that
it
house.
up, and we did. We fixed it up.
So just to give an idea of what that house, I vividly remember walking into that house. We were living in faculty housing, so like apartments, with other faculty members, and fairly small apartments, but we were little anyway. Julie and I were sharing a bedroom. And then they go, so we go look at this house, and Dad goes, this is where we're going to live. Because I think we must have gone to see it after you'd bought it. No, I remember seeing it slightly before that. So we went in to see it. We get in, like the electricity isn't working. The floorboards are on an angle like this. It hasn't been touched since 1930s. The basement looks like a horror show. It just has danger written at the bottom of the stairs in spray paint. It's all clay. There's a little shack in the back. It's completely covered in bees in the backyard. It was just...
And carpenter ants.
Oh, God, and carpenter ants. And I was I was just about to go to grade 4 or in grade 3 or maybe in grade 2 because you renovated. But I remember going in, stepping inside to this horror house that didn't have electricity, right? And there was wallpaper just hanging off of the wall.
Yeah, you remember.
And I remember this is where we're going to live. And it was like, I remember grabbing the wallpaper and just because it was falling off and just like tearing it off the wall and being like, oh, this is where we're going to live. Okay. But then you guys renovated for a very, very long time.
Well, I worked as the contractor and renovated it for 6 months. It only took 6 months to rebuild the entire house and dig down the basement.
Yeah, and you turned it into a good basement.
Yeah, it was a good basement.
And then it was a lovely house, but walking into it was like it had to be completely torn apart on the inside.
It was such a horror house that the people who lived next door had rented their house and wouldn't live in it until we fixed it up. Then they came back and lived in it.
Wow.
Because it gave everybody bad vibes.
It looked like people had died in there.
Well, what happened was a family had bought it in like the early, 1910 or something.
Yeah.
And then they were the only owners, and it hadn't been changed at all since 1935.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It had gas lights on the second floor. No electricity, gas lights. And the kitchen sink was broken. It was a big old 30s kitchen sink, but there were no cupboards or anything in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It was and the basement was, you couldn't stand up in the basement. But you could take a shovel and you could bang through the cement. There was an inch of cement on the floor. That's all that was there. And there was a corral for animals down there.
Wow.
That was they must have chickens or something down there or something.
In the house.
Yeah, in the house, in the basement. Yeah, well, it was winter. It was, cold in the winter.
There were dead raccoons in the walls?
In the chimney. Yeah. It was, and I said, I don't think I want to buy this house. And George said, well, then you can look for the house. And I thought, and I guess I could have and should have maybe, but I didn't. I bought it.
It was a great neighborhood.
It was
and
a great neighborhood. And he could walk to work.
Yeah, and it would have been the cheapest house in the best neighborhood you guys could afford.
It was the cheapest house.
Yeah. Wow.
It was $241,000.
What do you think the comparables were in that area?
Huh.
Like, how much do you think the comparable houses were in that area?
Oh, they must have been double that.
Yeah, it was really decrepit.
Yeah, it was an estate sale. The old guy, they had one child, and he lived there until he had dementia. And then the neighborhood people put him in an old folks' home and sold the house.
Oh, man.
He never married or anything.
It had probably broken down while he got sick.
Yeah, he never did anything to fix it.
I know. I had so many, because it was really, even once it got fixed, it was creaky. Like some of the floors, the old floors stayed, and it was just creaky. No one would move, and it would creak and groan. And I remember at night listening to these creaks and groans and being like, this is haunted. This is haunted. I live in a haunted house. But it turned into a nice house, and your house is really nice now.
Now it's really nice. Now that I've renovated it again.
Yeah, it's really nice.
But we thought of moving away from the neighborhood, and then we looked around at different neighborhoods, and then we'd come home and we'd think, oh, but there's lots of trees here, and the park is right there, and we know all the neighbors, and well, let's just stay. So we stayed.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
we liked it.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us like. That was a while ago, but you stayed in that house. Then what? Where do you want to go from here?
Well, I went to OCAD. I went to Ontario College of Art. It wasn't OCAD yet. It was an art college when we first moved to Toronto. You guys were in like senior kindergarten and grade 1, and I went off to art school. And so I went to art school for a couple of years. But then life just got complicated and I quit going to school.
I got sick.
You got sick. But that wasn't all. I lost a baby too. And I don't know, that just took the wind out of me. Took the wind out of me at that point. And so I didn't go to OCAD anymore. I went back and got my massage license and worked as a massage therapist when you were in junior high, when you were doing really very well.
Yeah, because I got really sick, and then I was put on a bunch of medications, and I went into remission, basically, for junior high. And I remember you going to massage school, studying all the time.
Yeah,
I loved it. That was intense for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's a 2-year course, and it is a much more difficult curriculum than university was, a science degree. It was, you were taking in-depth physiology and anatomy, and you had to know it really, and had to know everything. Neurology, you had to know it all.
Yeah, you studied a ton. So
I loved it.
So you got your massage therapy, the actual certificate.
Yeah. And then I went to work for other people, and eventually I just started working for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I had people come to the house, and we had this dog. We had Seiko, the American Eskimo vampire dog. He was a wonderful dog.
He was so mean.
He was kind of mean.
To other people.
Yeah. He was a loyal, he was a watchdog.
Yeah.
Well, people have been stealing our stuff off the porch, right?
Yeah.
They stole your scooter. This is a good story.
Oh, tell that story.
So we go down to Bloor Street. We always go down to Bloor Street to eat something on Friday nights. And so I'm with my little kids. And you're not that old. You're maybe...
I was in grade 5?
Maybe grade 5, something like that. And I'd bought the kids scooters. And
we didn't have very much money.
No.
We didn't have very much money. These scooters were really special. They're those little... Like, you know how everyone had Razor? People had Razor written on their scooters. Ours just said scooter. But like, these were our scooters. They were wobbly and broken in a certain way that made them really, really fast. And somebody stole them off our porch.
Yeah. So we go down to Bloor Street, and Mikhaila's scooter, the handle got stuck and it wouldn't go higher, right? Yeah. And there's this man, and he's scootering along on this little orange scooter. that the handles are too low. And I stop him and I go, where'd you get the scooter? And the kids go, Mom, and they go and they hide behind.
We literally, she stops this 6 foot, honestly, probably 6'4" giant guy, clearly not stable, on my scooter that has scooter, worn off on the bottom.
Right.
The handlebars are stuck. Like, it's clearly my scooter. And Mom is like, where'd you get the scooter? So Julian and I go into like a little crevice door and just like peer. We're like, this is not good.
So I say, where'd you get the scooter? And he goes, oh, I got it downtown somewhere. And I said, looks exactly like my daughter's scooter that was stolen off our porch. He goes, oh, no. My kid's grandma bought it for him. I says, oh yeah, I see how it goes. And I walked away. And then we walk by a restaurant and you go, there's the kids that go to our school. There's his kids. And they're sitting in the restaurant with their grandma. And I think, oh, this is just so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah. They're just kids that went to our school, their dad.
Yeah. So when you open your eyes and you stick your nose out and you see something like that, you see real life. And it's tragic, often tragic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we got a dog who would bark when anyone came.
Or even passed by or looked at us sideways or came up to give us a present. It didn't matter.
That's right.
Or came over to get a massage.
Yeah. And the dogs would bark at my massage clients. And bark away. No, he's okay. He won't bite, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's relaxing.
Which was iffy. Super relaxing.
Anyway, it didn't matter. We had him for 13 years and we just loved him.
Yeah.
So much. I walked with him all the time.
He was really helpful for me when I was sick too. Yeah.
Yes.
He'd just lay with me in bed.
I know.
He was so nice.
Yes.
For chronically ill people, having some sort of pet can just, especially because it can be so like lonely when you're sick.
Yes.
That having a pet is just.
They won't leave you.
So if that's definitely a way to help somebody if they're chronically ill, is get them a pet if they have someone else to help take care of it and stuff.
Yeah. And I like taking care of him. I liked going for a walk. I found walking very therapeutic. So I've always walked. It really, Seiko, he was good. I liked him a lot.
He would have been better if we'd fixed his diet.
If we had just fed him meat, would have been better if we wouldn't have fed him that kibble that they tell you to feed dogs, which is a real disaster.
He did not have a good time with that.
No, it's a disaster to do that.
Yeah.
But that was good. So he died in 2016? Or before that?
No, it was just after I met Andre. Yeah, it was 2016. We had to put him down in January or February. I think it was February.
It's coming up to the time. Yeah.
Are you going to get a new dog?
I've tried. I don't know. I just don't feel ready yet. There's just too much
going on.
I don't know. And, Julian has Rudy and Rudy comes over and I give Rudy a rub. And so I get a little bit of dog from Rudy. So that might be good enough for now. And then I have grandkids.
True.
And, Scarlett came over the other day and I have all this glass so that you can see through the house. I took out all the walls so you could see right through. And, Andre came up and he said, you're going to have fingerprints on this glass all the time. And I said, yeah, and then I won't anymore. And so it doesn't matter if I have fingerprints on the glass.
Aw.
It's true.
Aw.
I know it's sentimental, but it's true.
It's sentimental. Aw.
It's true though. And then Elliot was over last night, Sunday night, and there's glass by the basement stairs. And so Elliot's on the other side and he's 9 months old, right? And he's really interested in the glass, so you knock on the glass. He can't understand. And I put my socks there and he's trying to reach through the glass and get my socks. He's just, he could kind of see himself because they reflect a little bit, but then he can see you on the other side. It was quite entertaining. He was a cute little guy.
He is cute.
He's really scooting around, man. And he's actually on his hands and knees taking us. Like he's moving his knees now.
Oh, he's crawling.
And I said to Jill,
they're in trouble.
I said, just relax now because this is it. This is the end of it.
Yeah, man. I went to a park when Scarlett she was such a good kid. She just like sit by me. She was just so calm.
Yeah.
And I went to a park and there was a woman next to me with a kid exactly the same age, a boy exactly the same age as Scarlett. And the boy was just taken off. like I think he was just crawling up the hill, and she just pick him up, put him back, and just take off again, pick him up, put him back. It was like crawling all over the bench. Yeah. And she looked over, and Scarlett and I are just watching. Scarlett's just sitting next to me. She's just like, boys.
Yeah. Not just boys though. It's just different people. Yeah.
Scarlett was chill.
Neither of you were like that. For me, you weren't terrorists. Neither of you were.
Oh, well, that's good.
Not at all.
That's good. So, okay. So where are we?
We're around 2016, maybe.
Yeah. So then what happened?
Well, Julian came home from university. He finished his degree and left his girlfriend there in a kind of a fit of confusion. And she didn't want to come, and he needed to move on with his career. And so he ended up coming home to do a boot camp. And at the same time, there was a lot of... Jordan was still teaching. He was still seeing clients. And he was getting more... Well, he was always suspicious of, ethics committees and what was going on in the political life and what was going on in the university life, and how political correctness was coming back. It had been sometime when he was at Harvard, it was starting there, and then it kind of settled down for a few years, and he thought maybe it had settled down, but then he saw it coming back again, and he was getting quite upset and one morning he came down and he said, and it has just been, two things happened at the same time. One of his clients had been terrorized by some politically correct people and ended up leaving her position at work. And at the same time, the university was asking that everybody take courses in political correctness, and to make sure everybody was towing the line. And these two things happened at the same time, and he just saw, it was like a perfect storm. I guess it was a perfect storm. And he came down one morning, he said, I'd just like to, I don't know, I just want to say something publicly. And Julian and I were sitting there, and we said, well, you've been talking to us about this stuff for 30 years. What could happen? Why don't go make a public video? What could happen?
You've been saying this at home for a while. Put it on YouTube.
And then that afternoon...
That was you who suggested it, wasn't it?
To put what on you?
Post it up?
Oh, yeah. It was like, go ahead, make a public video. What harm can that happen? What kind of harm can that do? So that afternoon, Julian was on the phone with reporters calling to see Jordan. There was like people in the living room with Jordan, people on the front porch, people in their cars outside.
Was that Professor Against Political Correctness video?
That one.
Yeah, that was a whirlwind.
And we thought, that'll last a day.
Mm-hmm.
But it kept happening, and it just kept happening, and it just didn't go away. It just didn't go away at all. And then the stories were in all the newspapers, and he was being asked for interviews, then podcasts, and it was very busy. It got very busy. And he was trying to keep up and trying to make sense out of what was going on, which is kind of how his life has been ever since. Trying to keep up and trying to make sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was 2016, 2017. You went on tour with him.
I went on tour with him after we had a potlatch in our house.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We had a potlatch on the third floor.
Dad had been talking to this guy, Charles, who makes the most incredible carvings for about 15 years. Like they're very good friends. And they'd been in the works for a number of years, along with one of Dad's friends, trying to organize something to kind of bring the native, kind of to bridge the gap between some of the native population and kind of the Canadian government because of the disaster that happened, up until now, pretty much.
Yep.
And so this started off with a potlatch. We did part of the potlatch in BC too.
Yeah, that was the first potlatch I think they'd had in 50 years.
It was
because
incredible.
They were illegal for a very long time.
Yeah, they made potlatches illegal, the government, right?
Yeah. So we went out there and we were made part of the family. We were made part of the family. And then the next thing that had to happen was that a number of chiefs had to come out here and bless the place that we were going to set up as a longhouse. And so that's what we did. And then Charles built all of these totem poles. And when we renovated the third floor and put all these totem poles up there. So that's where they are.
That's where I got married.
And that's where you got married.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. You can kind of feel the power those things have up there.
Mm-hmm. We turned the welcome figure around now. It used to face towards the north. Now it faces towards the south.
Oh.
It's nicer. I like it.
That's a good idea.
And we have a ping pong table up there.
Oh right yeah. Now. That's always a good idea.
Yeah. So we play a lot of ping pong.
Okay. So the craziness, like you went on tour with Dad. That was insane.
Well, I went on tour with him partly because he seemed to be separating from the family. You know, it seemed like all of this public attention was separating him from the family. And we all noticed him kind of drawing back from us and not being as present with us. And I didn't want to lose him completely, so I thought I better go with him. So I went on tour with him. And I worked kind of as the person who made sure that every day went okay. And it did. It went brilliantly. It was a perfect tour.
Tour manager, kind of.
Yeah, his personal tour manager. Because there was a tour manager who went along with us, and he would go to the venues. He would get to the venues before us. And so when we arrived, he was already there. And then they would do a sound check as soon as we arrived. And then Jordan would go back into the dressing room and prepare himself alone for about a half an hour before every show. But when we first went on tour, he used to do interviews the day of the show. And then I would notice that the shows that he was tired and that he wasn't as crisp as he would have been otherwise. So I put an X over all of the interviews during the day and then said that between the show and the Q&A, he would take about a 10 or 15 minute break. If anybody wanted to interview, they could interview then.
Oh, you're the one who organized that, stuck that in there.
Well, I pushed them as far away from the show as I could so that the shows would be good. And I also, we would go for a steak and we figured out, go for a dinner really close to the theater. That way there's no stress about getting to the theater at all. The stress was all getting there for dinner. Have dinner, get him to the theater, and then he was set to go. And that worked out really well. We would fly the next morning and we'd be doing the same thing the next day. And it was just one day after it was all in different cities, but it was the same thing every day. And we did that all through the States a couple of times. And then we went through Canada. And then we went to Europe. And then we went to Australia. And by then I knew that I was going to have surgery when I got back. And so did Jordan. And I was hoping that the tour would be a little slower. So that I realized when we were in Europe and we went to Spain and Portugal, and those were the last two places that we were going to go before we came back to North America. And I took some time away. I hadn't taken any time away. I was really structuring my days to go along with him and make sure that everything went. And I just started leaving him I think I had it pretty organized by then. And so I could just kind of leave him in the afternoon. He would have a rest. Oh yeah, that's right. I dictated that he have a rest in the afternoon before his show. So when he went for a rest, I could go do something. And I started going to museums and in Madrid, I hired a bike, one of those bicycle couriers, to take me around the city. And so I was starting to have some fun.
But that was like, those were the last kind
Those are the last, that's after Scandinavia. And like that was after much of the world had been done by then.
Yeah.
But then we went to Australia, and the company that we hired to take us put security in place, which we'd never had. And also, they were, I don't know, there weren't that many places we were going to go to in Australia. So we didn't want to make it a very short time because of all the time change. So we spread them out. And that worked out well, so that we got to maybe walk on the beach or go to a koala bear sanctuary, or, so we did some nice things.
And the next time there's a tour, whenever that'll be after this COVID stuff, we'll do the same thing.
Yeah, we'll do the same thing.
We do not need to rush around.
No.
Way too much.
It was interesting. It was exciting and it was interesting, but it was exhausting. It was exhausting. And after all that's happened, I don't think that either Jordan nor I are up to that again. No, we do it a different way. We don't have to do that. And we don't have to do all that press. We don't have to do any press.
Oh, we don't have to do any press.
To do any press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, podcasts
That's my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. That is currently my take on it too. And podcasts are the only form of communication at the moment where you can actually see the person for what they are. Even like Instagram, you see this picture and it's this, even my Instagram, although I have podcast clips, but you see a picture of somebody and then you decide what they're like from that. And Twitter is not good. It's too few characters. You don't understand a person from that.
Yeah, it's like
Facebook
yelling at
is
each
kinda,
other. Yeah.
Facebook's kind of dead in my opinion. But YouTube long form podcasts or YouTube channels where if you choose to watch the content, then you can actually see what a person is like. So we better be sticking with that.
Yeah. So after I came back and had surgery and complications and all of that, then Jordan went to Jordan went in the hospital after I came out and was better. Once I was home again, which was really when you guys left for Russia, because I had been in Connecticut all of the fall. So I came home with him in November. So we were home for maybe a month.
Yeah, it was basically the tour in Australia and then everything just went to shit.
Yeah.
Until now.
So I stayed at home and recovered.
Yeah, and you needed to recover because what you went through almost killed you.
Yeah. So I had a lot of recovery to do.
You look great now though.
Thank you.
Like
your
hair is recovered. You look
all
strong.
my hair fell out. Oh
yeah. It was not good. Like your skin.
And it wasn't because of chemo or radiation.
It was stress.
I think
malnutrition.
It was malnutrition.
God damn it.
Yeah, it was malnutrition because I wasn't getting any nutrients to my body. All my nutrients were leaking out of my body.
Mm. So we're not going to delve into that, but
no,
it was.
I'm much, much better. All I have is a little bit of nerve pain in this foot. I've had it for 2 years now, so I think I'm going to start going to an acupuncturist to see if I can get it. It's not too bad, but it does limit how much I can walk comfortably.
Yeah, so. Try it. That's too bad. Take like nerve pain. After I had my ankle done, I didn't really have nerve pain though. Luckily, I had pain, but I didn't have nerve pain. I had numbness more than anything.
Right. I have tingling and burning.
Oh,
that
man.
kind of pain. Yeah. And I think it was because I had swelling in my foot and it disrupted the nerves. I think that's what happened because I've had ultrasound and there's nothing there that they say they can identify as trouble. So I think that's what happened. Anyway, it's not that bad and I'll deal with it. But
see a Chinese acupuncturist.
I do a lot of yoga. I do Pilates and stuff. It doesn't bother me when I do that. It's when I walk.
So let's finish this off by the last couple of years and even the few years before that, really since 2016, not that me being sick was a picnic or anything, but really since 2016, things have been very stressful. And then you got really sick and dad got really sick. And you've managed to stay incredibly, I don't really like using the word grounded, but you've managed to stay incredibly grounded. And I would say, just from the outside, you look like you're in better shape now after what would give some people PTSD. You look like you're in better shape than you were before this.
I'd say I am in better shape.
Yeah, and it's quite obvious from the outside. So how, just to wrap it up, because I know we're running out of time, do you have suggestions for people? Because people go through such horrible things. Like, how do you survive these things, or try and make them make you stronger instead of crush you down?
Well, when I was first diagnosed with cancer, they told me it was treatable. And so I thought, okay, it's treatable. I'll just do this and move on. And so I came home from Australia. I had surgery. 6 weeks later, I was walking from, Midtown to the lakefront and back. I was in good shape. Then I went to my 6-week doctor's appointment, and they told me, actually, no, we were wrong. What you have is a type of cancer that's we never see because everybody dies so fast. You're going to die in 11 months. If we have to do surgery like right now, and there's no chemo or we don't know how to treat this. So all we're going to do is take your kidney out and all your lymph out and hope for the best. And I thought, oh, I'm going to die. Okay, well, I'm 57 or something. I can't remember quite how old I was. That's not too bad because I've had quite a bit of cancer in my family. So people have died young. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be one of the people who die young. I can understand that. It happens. And then I came home and I went to tell you and Julian. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. This isn't about me. Whether I decide, it's not up to me to decide my fate. This may be my first mature thought in my life. My life isn't about me. It's about the service that I give to the people around me. And that's what my life is for. And that's what my life's for now. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I died and came back to life. So, and spiritually, I've been reborn. And I think I understand what reborn means now. And I think this is something that when you get sick and it looks like there's no way back, then you have to prepare yourself for what might happen. And I was put in a position where I was at the mercy of medicine and luck, really. And so all the prayers that came through all the people that Jordan and I had met on tour, I breathed in those prayers, the night before my surgery. I breathed in gold prayers to myself, and I asked myself why I turned against myself, and like why these little cells, it was like they had turned away. That's what it was like. It was like, hey, you guys, like, where'd you go? We have a job to do here. Everybody else is keeping me alive. You guys, what are you turned away for? But they were turned away for good. And I couldn't turn them back to me again. And then I realized, through this meditation I was doing, that I had to give the cancer to the universe because cancer is too big for one person. And so after that moment, anybody who would offer me any prayer or any relief of any kind or just a smile or anything, I would take it. I would take it and bring it to myself. And I realized that I wasn't doing it exactly for me. I was doing that to survive so that I could be someone who could be of service to Jordan, right? Be of service to you, be a grandmother for my grandkids. So I had these other things in my life that were important. And maybe I was going to die, but I was going to do whatever I had in my power to do to stay alive. And really, prayer was a big part of what I did, I had a very good friend come to the hospital when I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. Every day she came at 10 in the morning, and we prayed for 2 hours a day. And I just cried and told her my life story, really, and prayed. And I still pray every day. She taught me the rosary, and I'm not Catholic, but she taught me the rosary, and I memorized it, and I read about it, and I understand it, and I pray it every day to start my day, and I meditate every day to start my day, and my intention always is Thy will be done. I'm in service for God's will, and that doesn't mean that I'm not taking part in life. I am, but I'm not the person who's making the decisions. I'm not playing God anymore. I'm not going to be the person who says yes or no. I'm the person that says, what can I do to help? And so then the things that I see to be helpful, I know are the things that are good. Otherwise, I can't tell. If I'm trying to make something happen and it's not happening easily, then my intention isn't with what's right. So I have to pause. When I think something has to be done, I have to pause and see it start to appear to me.
I'm so bad at that.
It's really takes a lot of
Patience and trust.
lot of patience and trust. And trust, when you don't have trust, then you are playing with. So in the 12-step program, the second step is the step that you choose to have God in your life. And that's trust. To admit to yourself that you are going to give up control and you're going to trust yourself with a part of you that has is a higher power, a part of you that is all-knowing, that you're going to wait, be patient, and be open to seeing that manifest so that you know which way to go. It takes it takes a lot of practice. Because you can't force anything anymore. And you can't tell anybody what to do anymore. All you can say is what you experience. So I've really turned from someone who was always sharing in my massage practice. I was sharing to someone who's doing service. So I went one step closer to being a spiritual person. Because I was sharing, which is spiritual. When you're sharing with someone and there's a relationship, there's some spirit there. But now there's sharing, but there's more service. So I'm offering, but I'm trying to offer what is right and not force what I want or what I think is something that is going to be useful. I have to see it manifest before I can take action. And that's a hard thing to learn. I've had a hard time learning that. It's taken me a whole year. But, the people I'm working with say it takes people like 20 years. To see you doing that in a year is really, really fast. And so with people who are sick, this is a lifetime of learning. But every little step you can take to give yourself up to the power that is there in your heart, the more peace you'll find in your life.
Does it have to do with, and then we really have to stop because I know you have to go.
Yeah.
We can have you back on.
Okay.
So we can do more. That would be fun.
Yeah, I'd like to talk more about that stuff.
Okay. Do you think a lot of that's, one last question, then we really have to stop. Do you think that's intuition? Is that what you mean?
Intuition.
Like your kind of gut instinct about what you feel is right, and sometimes you fight that. Is that what you mean by what you were saying about your heart?
Yeah, well, people, you might talk to me and I might be thinking about what you're saying and trying to say, well, is she coming from the right place, or did she?
Thinking about it, yeah.
Yeah, you're not thinking about it. You're not thinking, you're talking more from your heart. And I would say intuition, yeah, right. People would say intuition because they would.
It's not using your brain to logic out whatever you think is going on.
No,
It's just go with that feeling.
Well, and it's to notice what's around you, because you'll see miracles. You'll see things happen. So let's see, maybe I can just give you a quick example. So just the other day, anyway, I got up in the morning and I was saying, "Thy will be done." And I was going through my day saying, "Thy will be done," knowing that God's going to tell me something this day. And I don't know what it's going to be.
What is thy will be done?
Thy will be done. It's from the Lord's Prayer.
And is that just
thy will, God's will?
Yeah.
Be done.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Not my will.
Yeah.
Right. God's will. So thy will. It's just a very quick prayer that I can say to keep me present, because God is in the breath. God is in between the words. God isn't the word. So when you're talking and you take a breath, that's where God is. That's that pause between your words. And that's where your intuition is too, I guess, right? It's that pause you take with your children when your children are doing something frustrating, and you pause, and then you watch, and then you see an opportunity to be helpful. And then through that helpful, you find what you were curious about, because then you're full of compassion when you're helping. And so any question that you'll have won't be coming out of judgment. It'll be coming out of compassion. And so it's your intention that has to be with compassion rather than judgment. So if you're there for judgment, then it's you taking control and pushing God out. If you pause and wait for an opportunity to be helpful, then God is there. Yeah, it's very cool.
That does sound cool.
It is. It's very cool.
I'm not quite there yet.
I'm there. You can come
That's
and visit
good.
anytime.
I can see that you're there. I can see that you're there. Well, Mom, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
I think people are going to like it. That was a lot of fun.
It's so nice to see you.
Yeah.